Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to What's Up Startup with Amit Bhasin, co-founder of GoMechanic. He is an MBA graduate from IIM Ahmedabad, and he also holds an engineering degree in from DC, Delhi College of Engineering, or now as we say, Delhi Technological University. And GoMechanic is a car services company that is full stack, customers focused, and we will be hosting him and knowing him the secrets of the trade and how to build successful businesses. Let's get the interview started.
Sure.
Okay, so let's start the interview, sir. I'm super excited about hosting you. I've heard so many of your advertisements, and I did a whole bunch of background research about you, and your journey seems really, exciting. So let's get started. So, sir, what is the story of your life, and what led you to start Go Mechanic while you were working in Oyo?
Well, we see entrepreneurship is something that was always on the back of my mind. Kushal and I, we are the two co-founders, and then we were joined by Nitin and Rishabh very soon. And we were discussing a bunch of ideas. Honestly, when I went to Oyo, I saw the workings of a startup from such close quarters. I was one of the very early joinees at Oyo, part of the top, the first 200 people who joined Oyo. And to be honest, it was such a energizing experience, right? That's where the entrepreneurial bug really caught up. Kushal and I were discussing a bunch of ideas at that point of time. Some of them were in electric vehicle space. Some of them were in elderly care space, and then there was Go Mechanic. We thought that there is a huge opportunity on when it comes to auto repairs aftermarket in the country, and also our own experiences as car owners, right? Who were taken for a ride, the proverbial ride, whenever the car went for a repair. So we thought that this is a huge opportunity to build a brand which stands for quality control, which stands for cost effectiveness, and which stands for a lot of convenience for the customer as well. So in a way, we wanted to declutter this entire auto aftermarket for the end consumer, and that is what we've been trying to build at Gomechanic.
Wow, wow, that sounds really interesting. So, what made you go from, IT to management and then starting up a company in hardware-oriented industry? That's quite a change.
Uh, See, life is essentially what happens when you're making other plans, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Management was a very conscious decision. I wanted to have a sense of how to build businesses, right? And I was very fortunate to land an admission in Ahmedabad in my fourth year itself. So that was almost a no-brainer, and was something that I really thought through. I definitely wanted an exposure on the business side of things. While I really enjoyed the IT aspects of whatever I learned at engineering, but I really wanted to have a have a sense of how it can be really be applied on the business side of front. Um, in Ahmedabad, honestly, the exposure that I got, both in terms of faculty as well as the peer group that came here, that just motivated me to raise the bar for my personal goals as well, right? And in a way, those 2 years at the institute have had a very pivotal role in trying to figure out where the journey will be charted out. Like most folks uh, who I had a very normal career trend after that. Joined consulting, basically interned with a company called Hey Group and landed a PPO there. Joined them, was a management consultant for 3 years or so, and really enjoyed it. In a way, consulting gave a very good sense of how businesses work, a very outside-in perspective. And then chanced upon Oyo, where I really got my hands dirty and figured out how businesses are built from scratch as well. So in a way, a lot of it is a function of the kind of experiences I continue to get, right from my B school days, then consulting for 3 years, working with top CXOs in the country, and then that fantastic 1.5 years at Oyo, where saw a company getting made from scratch. So in a way, a lot of these experiences have shaped my own path as well, and I do have to thank my peer group as well, also my co-founders who have played pivotal roles in defining where we land up.
That's a very wonderful explanation. And so, a follow-up question to this: do you think it is important to do an MBA to become an entrepreneur?
No, the answer is a resounding no. Uh, India is a land of entrepreneurs, right? We have so many self-employed people in this country, right? Essentially, that
Yeah,
if you had to keep MBA as a benchmark, then that would not really suffice, right? And that is something which being an entrepreneur myself has also told me over the course of last 4.5, 5 years of building GoMechanic. I've come across some really sharp entrepreneurs. Uh, some of them micro entrepreneurs, some of them have humongous visions of where to take their companies or their businesses. And what is essentially required is a lot of street smartness, right? And a good product market fit. And while an MBA can assist you in structuring your thought process on that, it's definitely not a sure shot go ahead when it comes to entrepreneurship. Even if you look at some of the most successful companies on the startups world as well, right? Some of them uh, I really look up to Bhavish, for example, at Ola, or work very closely with Ritesh at Toyo. Right, both of them don't. Both of them don't have preschool degrees. But can we really doubt the entrepreneurial prowess that those guys have? I think the jury is quite clear on that one. So I don't really think that MBA in any way is a sure short way or is a must when you start your entrepreneurial journey. What you really need is are smarts to figure out a right product market fit and continue to iterate, right? Because what you start off with as a product and what you land up is there's a huge journey that you need to follow, and you just need to be quick to the market. You need to iterate very quickly, and anybody who has that plus a vision to build a large business and a lot of audacity to build customer first, customer love companies. I think that's a much better recipe than an MBA is.
yeah, absolutely fantastic. Now, how exactly did you find your product market fit? What was your strategy, when you thought of the idea, from idea validation to building an MVP to reiterating and, those struggling days? So how was it, and how did you plan to, go about everything at that point in time?
Right. So one thing which we have really tried to inculcate in the culture of the company as well, and right from the beginning, is always been a bias for action. Right. So we would always keep hitting the market and learn from the market and continue to reiterate. Um, so, for example, when we started out and with the limited finances that you have when you're building a company, we had two options: whether either we could wait for a customer first fantastic product, or we could figure out other ways of getting the ball rolling. And we chose the latter path, right? And started off in a very B2B kind of a format, wherein you're working with a lot of taxi companies, a lot of Ola Uber drivers, right? And trying to figure out what is it that they require, right? And in a way, it laid the path for the company as well, because the use case for the driver industry is so high that, and also their and it's so important for them, right? The car is so important because they get their daily bread from that, right? So
Yeah,
every minute spent on the road is income for them, right? So you can't really. So the kind of learning that we got from that kind of clientele is something which has really helped us question a lot of things in the market that we were coming with a lot of preconceived notions as well, right? So it made us question whether the pricing that exists in the market is the best possible price or not, or is there a way to to be smarter about the product flows, to be smarter about the offering to the market, and then have a differentiated offering in the market, right? So we've always had that bias, right? That being said, there are a few fundamentals that we were very clear on right from the beginning. One of them was to be extremely important for our supply partners, right? And that is something that I learned at Oyo, and also Kushal had some experience with his automotive background. We wanted to be extremely important to fewer suppliers than being little important to a lot of suppliers, right? And that is something that we inculcated. And once you've defined some of these tenets on where you would build your company on what you will build your company on, everything then just starts falling suit, right? So in a nutshell, that bias for action is something that that definitely helped us also navigate our way around. If one thing is not working at every point of time, you're trying 2 or 3 different things and then quickly iterating and building it into your product flows, right? So that's something which we really value at GoMechanic.
Yeah. And just curious, like how difficult it is to, drop your preconceived notions about the market and then reiterate completely based on feedback. Like, is there a bias from your side? Like, no, that's not something that I expected, and suddenly, that has come from your analysis of the market and the back end that you have.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest. You need to have a lot of conviction on the product, that the problem that you are solving for is large enough, right? And there definitely exists a need for it, right? Once you have that conviction, the way you solve it is something that you have to be open towards. Is something that we believe in, right? And the market itself tells you a lot of these things, right? Just to give you an example, something like insurance claims, for example, is a problem that one of the things that we learned was that there is a preconceived notion that the workshops need to be of a certain infrastructure and quality. And by quality, I don't mean the work quality, just the facade, right? And it's a preconceived notion, right? That need to have that you need to have, and only then accidental vehicles can go there, right? So what we did essentially was, when with our experience of working with some of these suppliers, these entrepreneurs at such a close level, we understood that the wherewithal that is required, the equipment that is required, these workshop owners already have that, right? What they lack are the smarts, the financial systems, and the managerial flows that will make them lucrative for insurance companies as well. And that is a role that we were ready to play at GoMechanic, right? So in a way, it is very important that you believe in the idea per se, right? That this is a huge market need that you're trying to solve for. But at the same time, you have to be open towards and keep challenging some of the status quo that the market completely has, because that is where your moat in the market is going to come towards.
And what kind of differentiating factors does your company employ from your competitors in the niche, like pit stop, in terms of like target market, or maybe positioning yourself? So what is your differentiating factor?
Right. So we always position ourselves as a full stack auto aftermarket player, right? We are not a service company. We are not a spare parts company. We are a full stack auto aftermarket brand, right? And we are obsessed about our customer. So what we think is that so when we try to drill down that why do some of these problems exist for the customers, right? One of the prime reasons, 2 or 3 prime reasons that we figured out is, one, uh, the customer and the mechanic do not speak the same language, right? And it is such a black box category for the end consumer that you have to simplify it for the customer, right? So we set about trying to simplify, try to put an MRP to an erstwhile industry where no MRP existed, where basically a mechanic was looking at your face and deciding what should I charge you, right?
Yeah.
So that obsession towards simplifying this entire thing is something that all of our products are built towards. So there is a lot of upfront pricing. We built an entire operations layer that communicates with the customer and in a way educates the customer rather than trying to oversell the customer, right? So one is that. So we built that. Also, we understood that one of the major problems why the customer experience lacks is the entire parts problem, the spare parts problem. The workshops in the multi-brand setup do not have access to the right spare part at the right price and at the right time, right? And unless you solve that problem, you cannot solve for the customer experience, right? So we've taken some really solid strides in trying to solve a massive parts problem as well, where we actually went ahead and cataloged more than 2 million spare parts, right? Built the entire last mile delivery chain for supply chain for these parts to our workshops as well, and ensure that when we are committing to the customer that there is an upward pricing and there is an upfront experience that we vouch for, we are also delivering on that experience through the entire periphery of parts ecosystem that needs to be created on top of that, right? The fact that we are solving both of these problems together, right, and have built very solid foundations both in terms of product as well as distribution, is something which sets us fundamentally apart from most of the players in the market.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I can sense the energy coming from you, like the way you are talking, that you are super duper passionate about what you are going after, and your thoughts are very, very clear. So is that coming from passion for cars? or it's just I'm wrong in this particular?
Well, it does not come from passion for cars. Actually, I'm not too passionate about cars, to be honest. It is a mode of commutation for me. It takes me from point A to point B. But it is definitely a passion for problem solving. We really believe that what we are solving for is a massive customer need, right? We've ourselves as consumers faced those problems for years and years, and the excitement of solving this problem and building a large company on top of it is something which excites us every day, right? And yeah, so it's more about getting to solve some really fundamental problems which have huge outcomes is something that drives me every day.
Fantastic. Okay, so how has COVID-19 impacted your business? What changes have you made to sustain your business in the crisis? Because, automobiles were not functioning during that time, and everything would have stopped, your supply chain, customers, and everything.
Yeah. So we had a hard time for the 2 months of lockdown, right? But we used those 2 months in really upgrading our product. We were able to add a lot more categories on our technology stack, a lot more new categories on our technology stack. So we were able to add, a lot of new verticals like car accessories, like batteries, tires, light fitments, etc. on the application itself, and create the backend for it as well, so that we can fulfill on those promises as well, right? So once the lockdown lifted, we were able to scale much faster, and we actually added 8 new cities post the lockdown itself, because we were very confident about the technology stack that we built and the standardization that happened on top of it, and then we just quickly went to the market. In a way, COVID has been quite a boon for us, because we've seen a massive uptick. Our business is almost 40% higher than it used to be in February, right? And as I said, we've added new cities, we've added new categories, we've invested very heavily on our supply chain for parts, right? And now we supply spare parts to more than 50 cities across the entire country, right? So in a way, COVID helped us take a step back, build a lot of products in a very first principle manner, right? And in the same manner, it has also, and it's something that we've seen across industries, that the digital uptick has just gone through the roof, right? You talk about any industry, and not just on the consumer end, but even on the supply end. So now our workshops are more keen on using the technology system that we built on them. They appreciate the kind of transparency that brings to the table. So in a way, it has really helped any startup, honestly, which has been quick on its feet and has really implemented, I think, would have definitely gained out of this black swan event that happened.
Yeah. And I think the kind of technology that you are talking about would be a really big advantage for you, because plenty of workshops in your competitor space would have collapsed without the technology that you guys possess.
Yeah, so I think so. If you would have seen, I'm pretty sure you guys would have seen a lot of dealerships closed down
Yeah,
during this
absolutely.
time, right?
Absolutely.
Uh, and there are multitude of reasons. I think we should not even go down that road. But multitude of reasons. Sometimes it's inventory. Sometimes it is not having enough speed to the market. Sometimes it is just consumer shift. A customer wants a more convenient contactless solution, right? And if you are fast enough, you would succeed. If you are not, then you're always behind the eight ball. So yes, that has also presented a very unique opportunity to us, because there are a lot of blind spots now that exist in the cities, right? Because of dealerships closing down and other workshops closing down, and it lends itself to a great opportunity for a player like GoMechanic to come and own that market.
Okay. So let's say that you are starting GoMechanic today after COVID-19. What changes will you make to your strategy?
Okay. So what changes will make? It's a very interesting question, actually. I think some of the things that we would definitely do is take up more, and COVID definitely helped us to rethink some of that, and we implemented it already. We would go even more product first, right? Use technology at an even deeper level to solve some of these problems. Just to give you an example, earlier we used to have an entire call center layer in the middle, right? Which was interacting with the customer. But over those 2-3 months of lockdown, we were able to build a product which eliminated the need of having a call center for 60% of our orders completely, right? If we had to start GoMechanic again, perhaps we will build some of this in the design itself, right? But these are some of the things that you learn on the way. There are definitely advantages of, because the call center was always in office. We were getting to know the customer pulse day in and day out, so definitely helped, right? But in retrospect, we could have done some of those things faster, right? Which a Black Swan event definitely helped to ponder over. Also, I think scale. Once you start thinking product first, technology first, you can also think scale faster, right? Because the system is very replicable. It's a very cookie cutter system which can be taken to new cities. So would do these two things separately, but everything on the back of technology.
Fantastic. Speaking of scaling, so what side are you on, bootstrapping or venture capital?
Uh, I think so. The way we think about things in GoMechanic, so we've always been a very capital efficient company. What we believe in is that the fundamental economics of the business always need to make sense, right? Even at a small scale. Whoever says that ki yaar, scale ho jayega jab, when I start hitting, let's say 10,000 orders, the economics will start making sense. It doesn't happen, right? It should, at least that's the belief that we as founding team have at GoMechanic. The fundamental economics of the business should make sense at a smaller scale, and then you start replicating it, right? So where venture capital should be used in building capabilities for the future. So venture capital for technology building is fantastic. Venture capital for building the brand for your company is fantastic. But venture capital for funding your orders, where you are burning on each and every order, does not make sense, right? So I think as founders, you should always have this mix of try to bootstrap as much as possible, right? But where venture capital definitely helps you is building the long-term vision, building the long-term strategy, which will create a substantial moat in the market. But venture capital has to be used only for capability building and not for business as usual.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, coming to venture capital, how do you actually raise venture capital? Because I've seen so many founders struggling to, raise funding, and there are plenty of misconceptions that sometimes people are, they have not even acquired customers and they're looking for venture capital. So, what's your go-to strategy? When is the right time to, that sweet spot to acquire venture capital?
See, I think it depends a lot on the founder vision, honestly, how you want to build your company. There's no right or wrong way. There are certain founders which raise a bit of venture capital in the beginning and then go about building their business. Nothing wrong with that. There are others who would create a product market fit and then go to the market. To be honest, it's honestly whatever floats your boat. It will always give you less sleepless nights if there is capital in the bank, right? And you're building that business. It just helps you experiment more, right? Try more strategies, build more capabilities, right? That's where venture capital is. I would just leave it to the founders, honestly. I think there's no right answer to it. Depends completely on the vision the founder has for the company. There may be a founder who just wants to bootstrap their way and be 100% owner of a good business, right? And then there could be others who would perhaps be a 25-30% shareholder of the business at scale, but create a massive business out of it, right? There is no right strategy. It essentially, see, startups are organisms themselves. Everybody charts out its own path. And I think it would be foolhardy to have any preconceived notion about how to raise capital.
Yeah. Okay, so what skills are required to become an entrepreneur according to you? The top skills that you have developed or you would tell somebody that they should develop while, go and work doing their degree, MBA degrees, and when they're in college.
So I think one thing would be the courses that we pay some of the least importance to, they end up becoming the most important, right? But team building and human resources is actually the biggest differentiator when you're building a company. Having that clutch of people who have the same vision, who are working the same number of hours, who have the same hunger to build a massive organization is the single most biggest factor that determines whether your company will be successful or not. And as an entrepreneur, you will always be looking out, getting smart people aligned to your vision, building that company. So I think once you do that, then a lot of things start becoming easier, right? Because then you have a lot of smart people all thinking in the same direction, solving the problems bits and pieces, right? And you as a founder are just bringing everything together. That is a much better position to be in than trying to solve everything yourself. So
Yeah.
for me, team building is the biggest forte that a founder can possess, where you have those bunch of really smart, motivated people who'd go that extra mile.
Definitely, I'll keep that one in mind. Uh, so, how did you actually acquire your first 1,000 customers? Now, was it traditional marketing? Was it digital? Was it mix? Was it what was your, path to acquiring those customers?
Right. So as I told you, we started off as a very B2B kind of a format.
Yeah.
So we started working with a few taxi fleets. So where Kushal and I would go, the four co-founders, Nitin and Rishabh as well, we would just go into the market, keep standing outside the offices of taxi companies, people with 15 cars, 20 cars, 30 cars, right? And try to tell them that this is the offering that we have. We will solve this problem for you, right? And we were very lucky to have some of these, initial backers who trusted an erstwhile unknown company and people who had no knowledge of this sector to trust with their possessions, right? And we would have done, if not more, at least 700, 800 among the four of us. We would have done those orders ourselves, picking up those cars, taking them to the workshop, and creating bills, seeing everything is working to the point or not, right? So that is how we got our first customers, just by pure hustle, honestly, where you just are out in the market scouting for the business. Um, there is no substitute for hustle, right? As an entrepreneur, you have to do it. In due course, when we started getting some traction on it, we started building the digital prowess as well, right? Where Rishabh, one of our co-founders, donned that hat and now is one of the biggest fulcrum on which the entire business is built out of. So, but what got the ball rolling for us was the B2B business, so that the workshop started taking us seriously because we were getting, a churn of cars for them on a regular basis. Right? That helped us build the initial scale and then also gave us the bandwidth to think through the digital marketing aspect of things and build those capabilities as well. So then we started taking the direct to consumer route as well.
Okay, so how would you actually change your strategy from 1,000 customers to acquiring 1 lakh plus customers? There's got to be a drastic shift, like you were outreaching in a cold way, and then you mentioned about digital, but I would like you to go into a little bit more detail, so I can catch up on how was your journey.
So I think the most important thing is to lay down the processes, right? Both in terms of fulfillment as well as the marketing aspect of it. So what will scale your company, what will bring your company from 0 to 1 will not take you from to 1 to 10 and then subsequently from 10 to 100, right? So while hustle takes you from almost 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10, 10 to 100 is a lot of processes, a lot of systems that you have to put in place. And this is what we essentially build at GoMechanic. One of our jobs is to systemize as many things as possible, right? So for example, when the entire fulfillment engine now, which is like once the order lands at a workshop to the final bill delivery and then retouching that customer that now your service may be due, is completely product based now for us, right? And it sits on a product. But there are a lot of iterations that have gone into defining that product flow and then building a technology layer on top of that as well, right? And then most importantly, implementing it across 17, 18 different cities, right? So process. Similarly in marketing as well, right? You will try tens of different things, right? You will measure what happens in those 10 different things, and then you create a process out of the 2 or 3 things which are working, right? And then just start pumping money on it and then it starts scaling up. But you cannot scale without having a strong layer of data and taking those data back decisions and then building a process which has data measurement at its very outset built into the different steps of the process.
Okay, that's great. So, what are your future plans considering dynamic changes in the industry and consumer behavior changes that we have been witnessing post-COVID era?
So we think that we're sitting on a massive opportunity, right? Creating India's most loved aftermarket brand is something that we set aside as a vision for ourselves, and we see that uh, there is a potential for growing this business, if not more, at least 25 to 30x within India itself, right? There are a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities where a product like GoMechanic fits in perfectly. We are building the distribution capabilities, the last mile capabilities to ensure that the parts reach to that small location in, let's say, a Solapur or in a Nagpur, right, in Indore, in Palampur, in all of these places, right? So building those capabilities, we are building those capabilities as we speak. So for us, the vision is to create a massive, massive aftermarket brand that stands for customer trust, transparency, and convenience. Uh, what we are building for that is a lot of customer love, which is shown in our customer-centric products as well, right? And in our fulfillment engines as well. And at the same time, anything and everything that is required to deliver on that experience is something that we build. So if it means that the parts have to be provided within 5 hours, we will build that. If it means that we need to launch our own private label of parts because that is what the need of the hour is, we'll do that. If it means we need to partner with top insurance companies and give a great claims experience to the customer, we do that as well, right? So there is a lot of obsession towards creating that consumer brand. We also see a good opportunity to take the GoMechanic model to other parts of the world as well. And we have earmarked a few geographies which lend themselves beautifully to the GoMechanic model, right? And in due course, we'll also try some of these initiatives where we'll build a global brand out of GoMechanic as well.
It's really fantastic to see your perspective. I've been reading up startup books, Lean Startup, and then Kotler as well. And, seeing you apply all those, it's really, really, fantastic and enlightening experience to see everything come to life and, seeing all the dots connect and how they connect. And so this was really wonderful. And now we have a light-hearted rapid fire round. Now you can't have time to think. You have to answer whatever comes to your mind first. Okay.
Sure.
So entrepreneur or CEO of Google, you have to choose one.
Entrepreneur.
BMW or Mercedes?
BMW.
Hills versus beach?
Hills.
Dal makhani versus pasta?
Dal makhani.
If you could go back in time, what will you change about your life?
I'll become perhaps emotionally stronger so that I can take some really hard decisions much swifter than I can right now.
Okay. Delhi versus Ahmedabad?
Delhi.
Okay, so you can have lunch with 3 people. Whom do you choose? They can be dead or alive, your choice.
Okay. My wife. We don't get a lot of time, so I think it'll be great to scrape a lunch with her. I think I'd also like to sit across board with Tony Heish, the founder of Zappos. We lost him this month, last month itself. So I read his book, and that does help me. It's my go-to book, right, on creating a consumer-first brand. So I think it's a very sad loss for all of us as well. I really admire Travis Kalanick as well, the founder of Uber. I think it'll be fantastic to sit across the table and learn from him how to build a massive company out of a very realistic consumer problem.
Okay, and the last question. So, if you could give one lesson to somebody just starting out in entrepreneurship, what would be that lesson?
Don't overthink. Just do it. Because what you'll have in mind and what you'll end up creating will be opposite of each other. So just go into the market, keep iterating, and just do it as soon as you can.
Okay, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now, I was super thrilled and, energized by, how passionate you are about your work and the way you resonate with the vision and how everything relating to your company is engraved in you. It kind of comes to life when I'm talking to you. So it was a really, really wonderful experience. And I loved your, perspective, especially about product market fit as well as, focusing on the vision and the customer centric approach that I have read in books. I haven't applied that yet, but I am definitely going to keep that in mind. I also have a very entrepreneurial mindset, and I will first start with a job, and then I'll definitely go into entrepreneurship. It was really, really wonderful and enlightening hosting you. It was a really, really fabulous experience. So
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot for taking out your busy time from from your family and your company, being hosted by me. So thanks a lot for that.
Thanks a lot. I had a great pleasure, and best of luck for your endeavors.